Good evening, everyone. As all of you who are local to Great Neck know, it's very difficult to say no when Paul Brody asks you to come to something. So, Paul, you and Drora continue to make yourselves role models in our community for helping organizations and for doing what's important for the Jewish community. I'd like to build, if I can, for a moment on the introduction that was given. I got a call last year from a fellow by the name of Shammai. Shammai calls me and says, "Rabbi, I need your help." Okay, what can I do for you? He says, there's a young man in Great Neck. We're not talking Queens. There's a young man in Great Neck who wants to go from public school to yeshiva, but his parents can't afford it, and Chazaq is doing whatever it can do to pay the tuition for this young man to go to yeshiva. And we need help. Baruch Hashem, the shul was able to help, and I see the difference in this young man whom I see every Shabbos. I see the difference in him as a result of going from public school to yeshiva. Mamish hatzalas nefashos, literally saved the neshama of this young man. And here it's not a situation where the parents were opposed to yeshiva. They weren't opposed to yeshiva. They just couldn't afford. They couldn't afford to send their son to yeshiva. So even though he wanted to go, it wasn't until Chazaq got involved that he was able to go. So the Q at the end of Chazaq might stand for Queens. But it reaches into Great Neck as well and many other communities around. My job is to introduce our guest speaker for this evening. You already heard that Eli Rietti has a yichus. He's a yichus from his famous father, Rabbi Jonathan Rietti, who is an internet star. You can catch any of his multitude of videos on the internet for those of you who have internet. You can catch any of his videos and see what a brilliant and captivating speaker he is. And Eli comes, obviously, grown up in that tradition. Eli himself educated here in the United States and then spent 3 years in the Israel Army in Sava, first as both a gunner and also as a desert tracker. Both careers in Sava needing exceptional ability. He came back here. He doesn't do Kiruv full-time. I think his father does Kiruv full-time. He doesn't do Kiruv full-time. He does Kiruv 3/4 time and tries to make a parnasa in the other quarter of the time. But what's amazing about him is that he, in 2009, started with his father an organization called Breakthrough Chinuch, which is geared, visit the website, go to the website, breakthroughchinuch.com, and you'll see the incredible effort that was put into providing tools to help young men and women master the skills that they need in yeshiva. And if that wasn't enough, between all of the time that he puts into managing other people's money, Eli wrote a book called The Frum Revolution. The Frum Revolution, you have to read it. I'm not going to give away the ending. I think there's some books here tonight. Am I correct? Okay, so there's some books here tonight. The Frum Revolution, how to solve the problem of children off the derech, or at least one good approach. And I'd like to encourage you all to get a copy of the book, to get it signed by Eli, to read it. And after you read it, if you don't need it yourself, Mirz Hashem, you shouldn't need it, but you can share it with somebody who needs it, because all of us know individuals who could benefit from that. It's my pleasure tonight to be able to introduce to you our guest speaker, Eli Rietti.
There are chairs up front, by the way. There are chairs up front for those standing in the back if you want to sit down.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. And a special thank you to our hosts, Dr. Paul and Joe Brody, for opening up their home to us tonight. Thank you as well to the Chazaq organization for inviting me to speak about the Frum Revolution, based on my book, The Frum Revolution. It's available on Amazon.com and copies over here. My book, like the rabbi said, is based on the revolutionary elementary school curriculum developed by my father, Rabbi Jonathan Rietti, called Breakthrough Chinuch. And please feel free to visit breakthroughchinuch.com to learn more if anyone is interested by what I'm saying here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, as we speak, there is a revolution brewing in the Frum world. And I'm happy to say that the Chazaq organization and Chazaq-affiliated schools like Yeshiva Shari Tzion in Queens, run by Rabbi Frum and Mordechai, are spearheading the revolution. So what exactly is the Frum Revolution? Allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in the pre-revolutionary era in Muncie, where I attended pre-revolution yeshiva elementary schools and high schools. After about 12 years in the pre-revolutionary elementary and high school system, to be honest, I felt a little bit lost and burned out. I needed to find myself and I needed to grow up, which I suppose is why I eventually joined the Israeli army, where I served for 3 years in an infantry unit. Seeing the Israeli flags at the front door, I'm hoping this will fly well here tonight. Many things happened to me in those 3 years. But tonight, I'd like to just talk about 2 of those things that happened to me. Number 1, in the Army, I learned modern Hebrew. Learning Hebrew completely changed my relationship to Judaism. And this realization led me to think about how I had slipped through the cracks in my childhood yeshivas, how easily this could happen to someone else, and how easily this could be solved in the curriculum of the future. So how did learning Hebrew change my relationship to Judaism? Allow me to share the following story. After completing my army service, I returned back to Muncie. And one morning, I found myself in a shul. Now, to be honest, going to shul was not one of my favorite things to do back then. But for some reason that I don't remember right now, on this particular morning, I found myself in a shul for Shabbos. Chazaq had just finished Birkot HaShachar and was about to start Hogel. So I sat down in the back, put on my tefillin, opened the siddur, followed along, and began doing what I had been doing in shul since I was a child. I began to daydream. And in this particular daydream, I was floating in the air, drifting up toward the sky, until my head was literally in the clouds. Big, white, fluffy clouds. I drifted around among the clouds, and I noticed one particular cloud break out into a smile and start to laugh. I approached this friendly-looking cloud and asked, "Why are you so happy?" It didn't answer me, but it pointed back down to earth. So I looked down and I saw the entire globe vibrating. I drifted down closer to earth to assess the situation. I landed on a beach, and there I saw nothing. Just sand and water. Sand and water, as far as the eye can see. And then in the distance appeared waves, and what looked like surfers riding those waves. As the waves came closer, I saw that these were no ordinary surfers. These were in fact sharks. Baby sharks, to be exact. Baby sharks on surfboards, wearing sunglasses and singing a very upbeat song. My first reaction was, this must be the film set of some New Age kids movie. But then came more waves with more surfers. Turtles, fish, dolphins, whales, all surfed onto the shore, all laughing and singing this happy song. I called out to a surfing octopus, "What movie is this?" The octopus didn't reply, but just pointed to the area inland behind me. So I turned around to where the octopus was pointing, and there I witnessed a scene that could only be described as something straight out of The Lion King. I saw chimpanzees, giraffes, lions, elephants, all holding hands and dancing together. I thought to myself, okay, this must be the film set of The Lion King. I walked around trying to find the film crew. So I asked a laughing hyena, "What movie is this?" The hyena just continued laughing and pointed toward a forest in the distance. So I walked toward the forest. Maybe there I would be able to figure out what was going on. When I reached the forest, all I heard was dead silence. So I sat down on a stump. I needed a break from all this excitement. And then I heard the sound of a faint nigun in the distance. I listened closer, and it sounded like people dancing to a nigun with their feet stomping on the ground. In fact, the feet stomping sounded more like a boom. What I heard sounded something like this. Na 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 na. Boom. Na 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 na. Boom. Na 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 na. Boom. Na 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 na. Boom. What I saw next made my jaw drop to the ground. Giant trees were dancing in a circle, holding each other's branches like they were hands, stomping on the ground with their roots like they were feet. The ground vibrating with every stomp. One of the trees beckoned me to join the circle. So I joined the dancing trees, jumping, singing, clapping. When suddenly my dream was interrupted by a very harsh shh. I woke up back in the shul, finding myself on the receiving end of a long communal shush. Realizing that my joyous demeanor was inappropriate in the shul, I stopped my dancing and clapping. The shul continued to daven, and I was left wondering what just happened to me. Was I just in some 3D movie dreaming? What was that exactly? Was it Lion King? Was it Harry Potter? Lord of the Rings? Star Wars? Had to be one of those. Wasn't too sure, so I looked back in the Siddur, and there in Hodu, I noticed words I'd never seen before. Yismachu Hashemayim, the skies will be happy. V'tagel ha'aretz, the earth will rejoice. This is my own translation, by the way. Vayomru bagoyim Hashem alach, the nations will proclaim Hashem as king. Yiram hayam umlo'o, the sea and everything in it will thunder. Ve'alot hasadeh v'kol asher bo, the fields and everything in it will dance. Az yirananu atzei haya'ar v'ofnei Hashem, the trees of the forest will dance before Hashem. Kival spoke at the Aretz, who had come to judge the land. I read these words and I thought to myself, wow, did they add a new section to the Siddur? I never noticed this when I was a kid. And then I realized, oh, that's what it's like to daven when you understand the words. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the radical idea at the forefront of the Frum revolution. Children need to understand the words when they daven. What exactly do I mean by that? Am I implying that children currently don't understand the words when they daven? That doesn't make any sense. They know the alphabets, they can read the words, they know Hebrew vocabulary, they can translate Chumash, Mishnayos, Gemara, right? What's the problem? Here's the problem. The Hebrew language is made up of two components. And apologies to the Israelis in the audience who might find this part boring. But there are two components to Hebrew. There are vocabulary root words known as sharashim. And then there's something called prefixes and suffixes. If there's one takeaway I'd like all of you to take from this lecture tonight, it's these two words, prefixes and suffixes. Prefixes and suffixes. What exactly are prefixes and suffixes, and why are they important? Well, most words can be easily translated from Hebrew to English. So, for example, let's take the word sun. If I want to teach a kid what the word sun means in Hebrew, I just tell him, sun, shemesh, shemesh, sun. The kid just has to memorize the word and we're good to go. But then you have verbs. In Hebrew, verbs can take on over 30 different meanings based on the attached prefix or suffix. In order to, they usually denote male, female, singular, plural, past, present, or future tense, among others. So when a prefix or a suffix is attached to a word, like a verb, they fundamentally change the meaning of the word, to the point that it actually becomes a different word. That's the main difference between Hebrew and English. The pre-revolution system for teaching Hebrew does a decent job teaching Hebrew vocabulary, but the pre-revolution system fails when it comes to teaching prefixes and suffixes. The problem is, if the child only knows the vocabulary and is not proficient in the prefixes and suffixes, there's only an illusion of Hebrew reading ability. In reality, there is zero Hebrew reading ability. Now, the revolution is about solutions. I'm not here to bash the pre-revolution system. But in order to implement the solution, we first need to understand the problem. Here's the problem. A verb attached to a prefix and suffix can take on over 30 meanings. 30 different permutations, if you will. Mathematically, what that means is, instead of a child needing to learn or memorize one word, he now has to memorize 30 words. So let's say, for example, I'm an educator and I want a child to learn 100 verbs in the early elementary school. In the pre-revolution system, the child now has to memorize 3,000 words instead of 100 words. Another way to think about it is, if a child is looking at a pasuk or a phrase, let's assume they know all of the vocabulary words in that pasuk. All it takes is one verb in that pasuk, and now they only have a 1 in 30 chance of understanding what the pasuk means. A 1 in 30 chance is about a 3% chance. If there are two verbs in the pasuk, they now have almost a 1 in 1,000 chance of translating that pasuk correctly, even if they know all the vocabulary words in the pasuk. 1 in 1,000 doesn't sound like great odds to me. Allow me to illustrate this briefly. I apologize if this is boring anyone. Let's use a very, very simple two-word phrase. Yismachu Hashemayim. Does anyone in this room know what the root word of the word Yismachu is? Sameach. Good. Does anyone know what the word Hashemayim means? Sky. Great. Does everyone here agree that those are pretty basic words? By show of hands, how many people in this room are confident that a child would know what the word Sameach means?
How old is a child?
A child in early elementary school. By show of hands, how many people in this room are confident that a child would probably know what the word Hashemayim means? Good. So far, so good. Now, by show of hands, how many people in this room are confident that a child would know how to translate the phrase Yismachu Hashemayim? A little bit less people are confident about that. I have a homework assignment for everyone in this room, and for everyone watching this video. I would like everyone to take a child that they know. It could be your own child, it could be your niece, your nephew, your neighbor. Take them and ask them, what does Yismechu Hashemayim mean? In fact, feel free to point to any phrase in the Siddur and ask them to translate it. I think the answer may surprise you. But the revolution is about solutions, and Chazaq and Yeshiva Sha'arei Tzion are invested in the curriculum of the future. So let's focus on the solution. In the breakthrough chinuch curriculum developed by my father, he uses the highly successful method pioneered by Rabbi Yehuda Winder of Far Rockaway for teaching prefixes and suffixes. In this system, the prefixes and suffixes are divided into 4 logical categories: basic prefixes, plural suffixes, prefixes that denote future tense, and suffixes that denote past tense. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really not rocket science. Teachers can teach this, kids can learn this. That's it. That's my radical proposal here tonight. Teach the prefixes and suffixes to children as a separate, dedicated discipline. And then when a child sees a phrase like Yismechu Hashemayim, maybe we'll give them a chance to witness some of the imagery that Chazal intended for us to witness and experience when we read the words that we daven. For those interested, the best resource I can recommend is to join the revolution in the prefix and suffix field is Rabbi Winder's Lashon Torah prefixes and suffix workbooks, available in almost any Jewish bookstore. Now, the importance of learning prefixes and suffixes is a central theme in my book. In the book, I discuss how lack of proficiency in prefixes and suffixes may cause other ripple effects in elementary school, especially when it comes to learning Chumash, Mishnayos, and Gemara. I also discuss several other pressure points that exist in the pre-revolution system, pressure points where children may be falling through the cracks. But we don't have time tonight to discuss all the details. For the full version of my analysis and, more importantly, solutions, feel free to read my book. But what is the underlying fundamental principle behind the Frum Revolution? If I had to give over to you the message of my book while standing on one foot, what would I tell you? If you met me in an elevator and I had 30 seconds to tell you what my book was about and give you my elevator pitch, what would I tell you? I would tell you the revolution is all about teaching the children why they are doing what they're doing, why they're doing what we're teaching them to do. In education and in life in general, there's a big difference between knowing what to do and knowing why you're doing it. The pre-revolution system does a very good job of teaching the child what to do and how to do it. You want to be Jewish? Here's how you do it. We're going to teach you. You need to wear tzitzis. This is how you put on tzitzis. You need to daven. This is how you daven. You need to keep Shabbat. These are the rules for keeping Shabbat. You need to keep kosher. These are the rules for keeping kosher. You need to do this, you need to do that. These are the rules, this is how you do it. But what if we could also teach the why? Why do we keep kosher? Why do we keep Shabbat? Why do we daven? What if elementary schools would teach the children the why? How do we give the children the confidence that by the time they graduate elementary school, and a boy is bar mitzvah, and a girl is bat mitzvah, how do we give them the confidence to keep going strong? The confidence to know not just what to do, but why they're doing it. How do we do that? The answer is actually very simple. All we need to do is give them a Jewish parachute. What did I just say? Jewish parachute? What is a Jewish parachute? Allow me to tell you another story. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, a land called Israel, well, in the Israeli army, I found myself in a place that in English is called jump school. Jump school is a 3-week course where soldiers are trained how to parachute off a plane. During the first 2 weeks in jump school, we practiced all of the motions involved in parachuting. We practiced the correct way to fall so that we don't injure ourselves when we land. We practiced jumping off towers to simulate the fall and break our fear of heights. We rehearsed marching onto the plane, the specific seating arrangements on the plane, the exact order in which we would jump. We even practiced which specific foot we would use to launch the jump off the plane. For those of you interested, it actually depends which side of the plane you're jumping on off of, which foot you use to launch the jump. So after 2 weeks of going through the motions, practicing all the movements required in real parachuting, we were finally ready for week number 3, jump week. Jump week was when we would finally actually jump out of real planes. The 2 weeks of training had taught me exactly what to do, how to jump, how to land, how to fall. I was technically completely qualified to jump. But one question kept me awake at night. What if my parachute wouldn't open? It didn't help my fear that we were actually given a reserve parachute to open up in case the main one wouldn't open. I'm going to repeat that. We were given a second parachute to use just in case the first parachute didn't open after we jumped off of the plane. I personally found that a little bit scary. And then, unexpectedly, the day before we were scheduled to jump, our instructor brought us to a large warehouse in a remote section of the base. Inside the warehouse, we saw rows and rows of long, narrow tables. On each of these tables, parachutes were being stretched out to their full length, with several soldiers carefully inspecting each parachute, poking at the canopy, pulling the ropes, with looks of a doctor inspecting a patient. Our instructor told us, "We know that some of you may be scared by the fact that maybe when the time comes, your parachute might not open. So we decided to bring you here first, before you jump, to introduce you to the parachute inspection team. These soldiers spend their entire military careers inspecting parachutes. In fact, they inspect every single parachute before it gets used. They don't just spot check, they check every single one. So when you jump off that plane tomorrow, you can rest assured that you are using a parachute that was inspected today." That visit to the warehouse helped me overcome my fear that the parachute would not open. Having seen with my own eyes the care given to each individual parachute, my confidence and trust in the system allowed me to take that leap of faith off the airplane. The pre-revolution elementary school system focuses on how to practice Judaism, how to learn Torah, how to perform mitzvahs, how to daven in shul. But the curriculum of the future also teaches the story behind it, the fulfilled prophecies, the unbroken and accurate transmission of the Torah for thousands of years, how geography, topography, and archaeology all confirm landmarks and events mentioned in the Torah. The curriculum of the future preemptively answers the children's questions before they ask them. Questions like, how do I know God exists? How do I know God gave the Torah to the Jews at Har Sinai? What makes Judaism different than all the other religions? How many prophecies in the Torah have already come true? Answer, 17 of 20. What archaeological evidence supports the existence of people, places, and events in the Torah? Answer, a ton. Why are there so many mitzvot? How do we know that the transmission of the Torah did not get distorted over the past 2,000 years? That's a big one, by the way. I have friends who remained from their entire lives and to this day are very bothered by that question. Why are there so many different opinions in the Talmud? Why do good things happen to bad people? Why do we wear tefillin? Is the Torah compatible with science? Why am I Frum? So how exactly does the curriculum of the future answer all these questions? Well, to answer that question, I'll have to refer you to a presentation given by my father, Rabbi Jonathan Rietti. The presentation is called The Emunah Experience, or as I like to call, Vitamin E. The Emunah Experience uses a method called contextual education to bring all these topics into context in the child's mind. What the presentation does in a nutshell is identify 44 main events in Jewish history and then use that as a springboard to launch into different levels of Emunah. Level 1 shows how archaeology confirms all the events. Level 2 shows how the transmission of the Torah remained unbroken over thousands of years. Level 3 shows how 17 of 20 prophecies made in the Torah have already come true. Number 18 is actually in the process of coming true, the return of the Jews to Israel. Layer 4 gives insight into how the Jews in the Torah have survived and thrived over thousands of years, despite being persecuted in almost every generation by some of the greatest empires in history. This is just a basic outline of the presentation. The Emunah Experience is an integral part of the curriculum of the future and of the Frum Revolution. I highly, highly recommend everyone in this room and watching this video to watch the Emunah Experience presentation either live or online. And that's the story of the Jewish parachute. The parachute inspector gives the soldier the confidence to rely on the parachute in his life. The curriculum of the future does the same thing for the student. The curriculum of the future lets the child know you can rely on this, you can ask questions, because we have the answers. Your Jewish parachute has been inspected whenever you're ready to jump. I hope this presentation has given some of you food for thought on how our schools can continue to innovate and improve. Following the lead taken by the Chazaq organization and schools like Yeshiva Shari Tzion, let us lift Jewish education out of pre-revolutionary times and into the revolutionary era. Thank you for listening.